They mocked the new cadet the moment she stepped onto the gravel of the training compound, her boots still clean, her posture calm, her eyes quietly scanning the racks of rifles lined beneath the harsh morning sun, and the laughter spread quickly among the seasoned trainees who had spent months bruised, exhausted, and hardened by the relentless drills, because to them she looked out of place, too composed, too silent, too ordinary to survive a weapons battalion where recoil discipline, kill zone, mathematics, and stress firing under live rounds separated leaders from liabilities. Whispers followed her as she was handed a standard issue assault rifle, men scoffing at how lightly she held it, how she adjusted the sling without asking for help, how she checked the chamber with muscle memory rather than hesitation, and when an instructor barked orders to begin a rapid-fire evaluation, the ridicule only grew louder as shots echoed across the range and targets flipped downrange, because while others fought their weapons muzzles climbing, groups spreading, she moved with unnerving efficiency, breathing synced with trigger reset, stance absorbing recoil, rounds stacking into tight clusters that drew confused glances. Yet still no one took her seriously until a senior officer arrived unexpectedly, halting the exercise and ordering all weapons cleared, his presence alone silencing the range as he read from a tablet with a grim expression, announcing that a command transfer had just been enacted under classified authority, that operational leadership of the unit had changed effective immediately, and that the individual now assuming command was already present, standing among them, still holding the same rifle they had laughed at, and when he turned and addressed her by rank 1, none of them realized she held. The laughter died instantly, replaced by the cold realization that the new cadet had not been evaluated for admission but had been assessing them, that her familiarity with the weapons systems went far beyond qualification standards, spanning urban suppression tactics, long-range interdiction, counter-sniper doctrine, and classified modifications designed for battlefield dominance, and as she stepped forward, issuing precise, unflinching orders, correcting safety violations she had observed in silence, identifying shooters who flinched under pressure, explaining ballistic trajectories with the clarity of someone who had applied them under fire rather than studied them in classrooms, the unit understood that power in the military does not announce itself loudly, that mastery of weapons is not about bravado but control, discipline, and lethal restraint, and that the woman they dismissed had returned not to prove herself but to command, reshape, and prepare them for realities far deadlier than a training range, realities where hesitation costs lives, where weapons are extensions of will, and where respect is earned not through mockery but through demonstrated precision, authority, and absolute command of the battlefield. The moment she officially assumed command, the training ground transformed from a place of careless confidence into an arena of quiet tension, because authority carried differently when it came from someone who understood weapons not as tools of intimidation but as instruments of controlled destruction, and her first order was not shouted but delivered with measured calm as she instructed every soldier to reassemble their rifles from stripped components under timed pressure, watching closely as hands trembled, springs slipped, bolts were mishandled, and safety discipline cracked under scrutiny, revealing weaknesses that months of routine drills had failed to expose. And when she stopped the exercise abruptly, she did not criticize, instead she demonstrated, reassembling the rifle flawlessly while explaining how improper gas system alignment could jam a weapon in the middle of a firefight, how a poorly seated magazine could turn confidence into panic, how ignorance of one's weapon was more dangerous than the enemy, and then she escalated the training without warning by ordering a live-fire movement course using multiple weapon platforms, transitioning from assault rifles to designated marksman rifles, then to sidearms under simulated combat stress, smoke, alarms, and timed commands, forcing the unit to confront how quickly battlefield conditions overwhelm muscle memory, and as targets appeared unpredictably she corrected stances mid-motion, adjusted grip angles, recalculated firing lanes, and enforced fire discipline with the precision of someone who had commanded engagements where civilian proximity, ammunition limitations, and time-sensitive objectives made every round count, and the soldiers who once mocked her now struggled to keep pace as she moved effortlessly through the course, weapon transition seamless, muzzle awareness perfect, reloads executed with mechanical elegance, proving that leadership in combat is not about issuing orders from behind but about setting a standard so high it drags others upward whether they resist or not. And when the exercise ended, she gathered them not for praise but for truth, explaining that real combat does not forgive sloppy shooting, that weapons amplify both skill and incompetence, that fear travels faster than bullets if discipline fails, and that their unit would either become a precision instrument capable of overwhelming force or collapse under its own arrogance. And as she outlined the next phase of training: night operations, limited visibility engagements, weapon malfunction drills under live fire, and command rotations designed to break ego and rebuild trust, the realization settled heavily over the formation that this was no symbolic appointment, no political promotion, but the arrival of a commander forged in environments where weapons were not theoretical, where silence before a shot mattered more than celebration after, and where survival depended on absolute mastery of firepower, restraint, and leadership. And by the time she dismissed them, the range that once echoed with laughter now stood silent again, not from shock this time, but from respect born of understanding that they were no longer training for show, they were being prepared for war. As the first operational orders came down, the cadets turned soldiers felt a tension they had never experienced before, because the battlefield waiting beyond the gates was not a controlled range but a complex, living environment where terrain, enemy positioning, and the limitations of their weapons would test every lesson she had drilled into them. And from the moment they crossed the checkpoint into hostile territory, her command style became evident. She moved ahead of the line to observe angles of fire, assessed each weapon's readiness with a glance, corrected the aim of marksmen while simultaneously coordinating suppressive fire, grenade deployment, and cover movement, all while keeping voice commands concise and deliberate so that no one hesitated under the threat of return fire. And when the first ambush erupted from a concealed ridge, chaos erupted among those who had once mocked her, but she remained calm, issuing micro-orders, directing sniper teams to cover flanks, assigning assault rifles to breach lanes, instructing automatic weapons to maintain precise bursts to avoid friendly casualties, all in perfect synchronization, demonstrating not only tactical brilliance but an intimate knowledge of each weapon's quirks, the recoil patterns, the effective ranges, the optimal magazine capacity for specific scenarios, the exact moment to switch from single shots to controlled bursts. And by the time the dust settled, the squad that had once laughed at her now realized that her mastery of firearms was matched only by her ability to command under extreme stress, because every shot she had fired, every order she had given, was rooted in countless hours of disciplined preparation. And as they moved deeper into the mission, clearing compounds, securing perimeters, and navigating sniper corridors, she continued to teach through action, adjusting stances, recalibrating suppressors, swapping optics for improved targeting in low light, demonstrating the lethal synergy between skill and weapon. And by the mission's end, what had started as mockery transformed into awe, because the new cadet who had been underestimated had become the embodiment of what it meant to lead in combat, a commander whose authority was earned by precision, discipline, and unshakable control of every weapon in her arsenal. And as they returned to base under the fading sunset, the soldiers carried more than the weight of their packs, they carried the lesson that in warfare, respect is never demanded, it is forged through mastery, decisiveness, and the quiet, undeniable competence of someone who refuses to be underestimated. The moment arrived when the cadets realized that surviving missions was only part of becoming elite, because she announced a final, unannounced test that would push every soldier beyond exhaustion, forcing them to confront not only the mechanics of their weapons but their ability to act under extreme mental and physical pressure, and as the range transformed into a simulated war zone with smoke generators, timed explosions, moving targets, and unexpected enemy incursions, the soldiers scrambled, hearts pounding, fingers trembling on triggers, while she moved with uncanny calm, monitoring each weapon system, adjusting scopes for wind drift, recalculating ballistic arcs, directing cover fire with split-second timing, and correcting stances in motion without breaking stride, demonstrating how even minor misalignment or hesitation could turn a successful maneuver into a catastrophe, and when a squad attempted a rushed assault, she stopped them mid-action, reassigning roles. Explaining why assault rifles needed controlled bursts while